This video about Myanmar's military coup, a tale of power, politics, and protest. Southeast Asian country Myanmar, sometimes referred to as Burma, is bordered by Bangladesh, India, China, Laos, and Thailand. It has a long and turbulent history. Military rule has dominated the nation's political scene for the majority of the time since independence. A coup d'état by the military, known as the Tatmadaw, to take over the government occurred in Myanmar on February 1, 2021, causing yet another big upheaval. An international outcry and condemnation were generated by this incident, which threw Myanmar into a state of crisis and sparked widespread protests. The complicated events leading up to the military coup, the reasons for it, the subsequent citizen resistance movement, and the international reactions to the developing crisis are all explored in this narrative. We examine the circumstances that led to the military's decision to retake control of the nation as we delve into the historical context of Myanmar's political evolution. Historical background. Part 1. Burma before independence. British colonialism's effects on Burmese politics and society. The fight for freedom and the anti-colonial movement. The creation of the Union of Burma and the initial difficulties the newly independent country encountered. Military rule and General Ne Win's ascendancy. The creation of a military junta and the first military coup in 1962. The effects of General Ne Win's socialist initiatives on the economy and government. Human rights violations and the repression of political opposition under military authority. The 1988 uprising and the movement toward democracy. The violent crackdown and the pro-democracy marches. SLORC's State Law and Order Restoration Council, creation. The disputed 1990 elections and the ensuing unwillingness to provide the elected government the power transfer. Part 2. The road to the 2021 coup. Semi-civilian rule and the 2008 Constitution. The 2008 Constitution's adoption and how it will affect democracy. Under President Thein Sein, the country's transition to a semi-civil government. Military involvement and influence in the civilian-led government. An overview of Aung San Suu Kyi and the National League for Democracy, NLD. The development of Aung San Suu Kyi as a symbol of resistance and democracy. Election wins for the NLD in 2015 and 2020. Difficulties that the NLD government is facing, such as the Rohingya issue. Military allegations and election controversy. The overwhelming win of the NLD in the 2020 general elections. Election fraud allegations and requests for a probe from the military. The civilian administration and the Tatmadaw are increasingly at odds. The coup unfolds in Part 3. The seizure of power. February 1, 2021. The proclamation of an emergency by the military and the incarceration of government officials. Reactions and condemnations to the coup on a global scale. The military's defenses. The justifications used by the military for taking control. The coup's connection to purported election irregularities. The effect on the democracy and government of Myanmar. Civilian opposition and the movement for civil disobedience. The start of massive demonstrations and civil disobedience. The participation of several civil society organizations, such as students, activists, and monks. Response of the Tatmadaw to the demonstrations and reports of violence. Part 4. Regional dynamics and global responses. Diplomatic pressure and international sanctions. Economic sanctions imposed by different nations and international organizations. The part played by neighboring nations and how they felt about the coup. Interventions and crisis resolution efforts made by the UN. ASEAN's mediation and the search for communication. The crisis's mediation by the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN. The difficulties and constraints ASEAN encountered in dealing with the situation. The likelihood of communication between military and civilian leaders. Part 5. The future. The fight for democracy, 5.1. The resistance movement's development and how it may affect Myanmar's future. The contribution of international assistance in keeping the democracy movement alive. The difficulties in restoring trust between the military and civilians. The refugee crisis and related issues. The fate of displaced communities and the humanitarian situation in Myanmar. The support provided by foreign aid groups. The difficulties of resolving violations of human rights and encouraging reconciliation. Conclusion. The February 1, 2021 military takeover has had a significant and far-reaching impact on Myanmar and the world community. The country's future has been molded by the history of military authority, citizen opposition, and international responses to the crisis. The fight for democracy, human rights, and stability continues to be at the forefront as Myanmar forges ahead. The tale of Myanmar's military takeover serves as a sobering reminder of the significance of safeguarding human rights and democratic ideals in the quest of a fair and successful society. Please subscribe the channel Z Complex.